who clean up after festivals and similar events? What's the best and worst things you have found left behind? Story 1. I was working at a festival, although not doing cleanup, and stayed till the day after. The amount of tents people leave behind, brand new tents. Basically, people just buy new stuff for that festival and then can't be bothered to bring it home to dispose of it properly. I ended up with a brand new 10-person tent, thanks to some other people's laziness. Story 2. I'm an usher in my neighborhood movie theater, so ick if this counts, but I found a plastic bag under a seat with 6 guppies swimming around inside. So I kept the guppies for myself, lol. I had to Google how to take care of fish, but it was fun, and I still have them today. Story 3. I cleaned up for an event once, and it was an event where you weren't allowed to bring your own alcohol in, so they can get you to buy it from the event itself, and whatnot. So cops were taking people's alcohol. Cool, that's fine. I was cleaning up, and 2 cops walked over and asked if I was 18. I showed them my license to prove I was, and they gave me almost 1,000 of untouched alcohol that they'd confiscated from people trying to sneak it in, bottles of vodka and tequila, a lot of beer and rum, and a bunch of ciders, all given to me because I was a volunteer and not getting paid otherwise. Was great at it for everyone asking. This was in Australia, LMFAO. Story 4. I did a clean at a 3-day music festival once. Literally the first night, I had to clean one of the portable shower cubicles because someone had in the corner and stuck a cocktail umbrella in it. Edit, thank for the awards. It goes without saying that I didn't take another festival job. Work also, nice chirpin'. Story 5. Bottle of rum, lots and lots of drugs, watches, phones, perfectly good clothes, welly boots, wallets, cash, etc. Worst is tents, as in abandoning your tent, but doing a massive in it before you go so it can't be reused. Story 6. Not my profession, but I lived in the downtown area of my city when I was younger, and every year for the last 100-odd years they've had a huge festival in that downtown area celebrating the fruit crop. Although nowadays, it's less about the crop and more about the kids from the local university getting wasted. Anyways, I stepped out my back door on the last night of the festival and saw a young woman passed out in the alley. I ran over to her as quick as I could to make sure she was alive. I had 911 on the phone, and they advised me to poke her with my foot just in case she was alive, and responded aggressively. So I poked this chick with my foot and almost died of a heart attack myself when she leaps up, screams like a banshee, and throws an empty bottle of Fireball square in my chest. She took off running, stumbling down the alley, and stopped about 50 feet away from me, takes off her dress, and completely naked, starts in the road. Then she took off down the street. The 911 operator just says, did she respond to the nudge with your foot? Edit, glad you all enjoyed this story so much. Stay hydrated. Story 7. We were too wasted to leave a music festival outside of LA once, so we just hung out and waited for everyone else to take off. When Maya and I finally got straight enough to pack up, we walked through a wasteland of expensive brand name tents and chairs. We put our stuff away and then literally just walked around picking stuff up. The people cleaning had already picked through all the good stuff and were literally filling wheelbarrows full of things. We ended up scoring a moose jaw 8-person tent that was barely used. I found a few pair of designer glasses and a ton of other clothes like hoodies and very nice jeans. I found a really expensive folding knife and a brand new Canon 5D that had one picture of someone's, but on it he found a coin purse that had 300 in it and no ID under a styrofoam cooler. We also found a Yeti cooler that was filled with crushed hard seltzer cans and a poo that we cleaned out. We packed his SUV literally to the brim with expensive stuff and have been using it all for years. Story 8. Did it once as a fundraiser for a youth organization, and collectively we found 3,010 mobile phones. And this was during the days when it was a somewhat luxury to have a phone. Clarification, edit, I didn't personally find and keep all of the above. This is what was found by the group of us, which was around 40 teenagers. I found 35 and no phones. Story 9. My dad used to be the guy in charge of renting out the nights of Columbus Hall. Per policy, he had to be on site during the event, but would clean up after. The cleanup would usually be the next day, and ID come along to help. The best thing we found was a $500 tip left behind by the father of the bride after a wedding reception with a little thank you note. The worst was finding the punch bowl the next day after someone had puked in it and put a lid over it. I'm pretty sure it had been spiked with something pretty strong before that, too. Story 10. Tent. It's a 5-gallon bucket filled with laundry detergent with a toilet seat on top placed in a cheap tent. Imagine open that sucker up after 4 days of 100-degree weather, dead body. It was an apparent OD, booze and drugs, also a nitrous tank. That night after work was fun. Worst is definitely a tie between the 5-liter water carrier filled with urine or the lidded saucepan containing a single, fairly large poo. Story 11. Not quite what was asked, but I have an uncle who runs a 2-day festival. It is held on tribal land. At the end, people from the tribe were ready to clean up after the weekend festivities. That was part of the contract. After the last act, he gets up on stage and asks the festival goers to help clean up after themselves. The crowd left it clean. No cleanup needed after, so guess clean grounds after a weekend festival may count. Story 12, after Fish shows, there's a group of volunteers that clean up the lot. It's called Green Crew. The first time I did it, I wasn't fully aware what the point was. We got gloves and a trash bag then spread out on one side of the lot and walked across it picking up. When we got to the other side, everyone was way faster than me getting to the other side. We were told to consolidate bags. I go to pour mine into the guy next to me. He goes, dude, we only pick up returnable and recyclable stuff, as I pour trash and glow sticks and like food and into his bag of recyclables. Story 13, I worked as a sound engineer for an under 21 club in Alaska for a couple years. You'd find all sorts of stuff left behind after shows. For some reason, nearly every other show some scene kid would decide to plug their phone in to charge somewhere and forget about it. Would also find all sorts of drugs, mostly weed or pills like Adderall or Vicodin, but also oftentimes half-empty bottles of shitty booze, very often pints of Monarch vodka or RR whiskey. Whippet canisters for locos, this was during the original formula years, and empty bottles of Robitussin Max Cough back in the days when it was all DXM. I think the best thing we ever found, though, was a Mesa Boogie triple rectifier, a 2500 amp, that was probably going for $1,700 new at the time. Me, the promoter, and my guitarist called literally every guitarist that had played there that week to try to get it back to them. None of them claimed it, so my guitarist got a new amp out of the deal. Story 14, collected tents and sleeping bags for a homeless charity. Also picked up hundreds of cans of beer and cider, put the cans in a bath at home in sterilizing fluid, then sold them cheap at a party as a fundraiser for the charity. Story 15, I was a volunteer at a large festival. Though I didn't work cleaning the camping area, but I did speak to one of the scavengers who roamed the camping area afterwards. He said the best loot was car batteries and Euro pallets. Turns out there are hardware and construction companies who will pay you a deposit for those things. He also found tons of beer. Story 16, I worked for a summer driving the buses and cleaning them for Summerfest. Never found much left on the buses except a lot of vomit. Except this one time, we were walking through the lot tallying how many buses had a certain type of radio for the company, and I found a money pouch left on the bus by one of the girls whose job it was to collect payments from those riding the buses to the fairgrounds. In those days, I was a poor college student, and I choked when I saw there was around 2,000 in there. But I was also a good girl and turned it in. Apparently, they had been set to fire her and sue her for the stolen cash, so I saved her from a criminal record, but of course she still lost her job for being careless. I never did get even a thank you from the company. Story 17, would always find pipes, condoms in various states gross. Once I found a gift card mixed in with the detritus next to the stage, checked the 1-800 number, and it still had 100 value. But I don't know if it is the best or worst thing, but one time after the last concert, after the bands left and the sound and light contractor had packed out and left, we found a girl under the stage, seriously hung over and looking like but still alive, apparently. She crawled up under there at some point and passed out. Slept for 6 hours. One of the house crew loaned her a cell phone, and she called someone to come pick her up. Off she went to rock another day. Story 18, not a rave, but when I lived at a party house in my early 20s, I once cleaned up after a big night and found a cigarette with lipstick on the end you typically light. The lipstick wearer had smoked it backwards and inhaled nearly the entire filter. Story 19, money. Lots of alcohol, drugs, phones, clothes. Depending on the festival, you can come across a lot of designer clothes. Those are the most common things you'll find. Camping gear is an obvious one, but you see some good quality brand stuff that is all new, chairs, air mattresses, etc. More unusual or expensive things found are foldable Ray-Bans. MAC makeup brushes, which can be $60 per brush apparently. Crazy bike, gold necklaces, and other small things like that. The worst thing left behind is you come across toilet tents. Yep, that is exactly what you think it is. People are disgusting. Don't do this. If you do this, you are the worst kind of person. I would just like to add, as people have been saying they leave their tents behind, this is littering. Unless you take it down and pack it up and leave it somewhere for a charity collection, then you are littering. For every one tent that gets taken down and reused, there's hundreds that just get bulldozed and go to landfill. The charities only get a short amount if time to take down and pack up tents before they get hunted off by security and the whole lot gets bulldozed. Don't bring more than you need to a festival, and then you won't have too much to carry back on the last day. Take your rubbish home, use the bins, take your stuff home, take your stuff home, or that stuff just becomes rubbish. Story 20, I cleaned up after a Marilyn Manson concert once. I have a box containing 87 iPhones. It originally had around 200 of them, but I either returned them or used the bricked ones to fix broken ones. More profit to use them in repairs than to sell them. I also found 3 sheets of acid, which I disposed of carefully. Legal notice drugs are fun and a great way to completely space through all of 2020, but are illegal, so don't do them, but also don't listen to authority figures like me. Story 21, oh, by far the worst, was a group of friends, easily 10 to 15 of them by the evidence, who had a tent that they used as a bathroom, so they didn't have to go to the portaloos, fully just shat in the corner and work their way out over the days. It was horrendous. I don't understand how anyone could have gone in there with the smell. ETA, plus it was a 3-day festival, and we got to the tent on day 2 or 3 of post-festival cleanup. So it had been marinating for up to 6 days, in the dead heat of the Australian summer. I lost a lot of hope for humanity through that job. Story 22, not a worker or cleaner, but the morning we woke up to leave Bonnaroo, one member of our group found an 800G chunk of opium on the ground outside his tent. It was amazing, super high quality, and we couldn't really believe it. He gave each of us a hunk and kept the rest. Unsurprisingly, it actually was the catalyst for him to slide into opiate addiction and change his life forever. I often wonder how life would have turned out for him if he had just looked the other way. Story 23, I was working at a super bougie day festival in NYC right out of college. It got rained out for 2 days, but on the third it was gorgeous. It was like roast-themed or some. So everyone was wearing pink and white, and there were gourmet chefs making super overpriced food, but it was delicious. As the last act play, my manager told me to start cleaning up the artist area. Pretty much everyone had left except for the 2 super hot bartenders. They felt sorry for me while I was cleaning, so they called me over and handed me a bottle. Straight up, they said, take as much as you want. There's too much because of the cancel days. So needless to say, I got very drunk with them and grabbed like 5 bottles of really nice roast. That's all I could carry in my bag. Then as I was leaving, the chefs who I had chatted with earlier started giving me boxes and boxes of food for the same reason. It really was a waste, but as a broke rat, I was absolutely in heaven. The ground was littered with expensive sunglasses, jewelry, credit cards, etc. I found a pair of brand new Ray-Bans that remarkably hadn't been crushed. Really nice clothes too, but they were covered in mud, so I didn't grab any of it. I was pretty much blackout by the time I left and fell asleep on the subway, trying to find my way back to my friend's place that I was staying at. But if it wasn't an awesome day... Story 24, I can't disclose much due to the NDA I signed, but I cleaned for an annual Christmas party thrown by a multi-billionaire type guy a couple years in a row. I found little baggies of pills and powders, jewelry of all kinds, and nipple pasties and panties in all sizes. I've seen a half-naked drunk chick try diving into a pool and split her head open, and ODs of all kinds. Man, I miss cleaning for those parties. I got to attend the wild parties and get paid for it. Story 25, knew someone who cleaned a park after a big surf championship. He found an expensive bottle of whiskey addressed to the winner of the competition and kept it. Story 26, used to work in a nightclub, and we had an event for a large group of related companies. It was their Christmas party or something. For 8 a.m. rolls around, and everyone leaves slowly, as usual grumpy about having to leave, and once everyone's gone, we find a pair of men's dress shoes and a pink, lacy G-string on the dance floor. Story 27, I have a few friends who used to do that, and as others have said, tents everywhere and other goods. Generally, the rich foreigners can have a good time, buy their stuff locally, can't be ours to carry back home, and just leave it there. Just don't forget to clean the puke, drugs, and from them first. Story 28, I've been going to a small anime gaming festival, like 300 people max, every summer for 8 years. Every year, multiple toys are found during the cleanup. Story 29, went to a ton of festivals back in the day, string cheese, rusted root, etc., old rainbow crew. The good I have found bundles of cash, a bag of 20x wheat, a full nitrous tank, a chainmail vest, unopened alcohol, the bad piles of tampons, vomit-stained people passed out and said vomit, burnt cash, fake drugs, the ugly found a baby, a 2-year-old kid in the woods, as the place was pretty much empty, couldn't speak much. No one there said he was theirs. He was dirty, sagging diaper, just wearing a tie-dye tee. We group of friends and me fed him after making sure he was on solids. Sometimes hippies do this extended breastfeeding with minimal exposure to solids. Bathed him in a cooler with water we heated on our stove and created a diaper out of torn skirts and t-shirts and dressed him tunic style using skirts. I wanted to keep him, as parental instincts have always been strong with me. But logically that would be akin to kidnapping. We found the owner of the land, thinking one of his might have escaped, but no, he didn't want cops on his property. So we decided to break into 2 groups. One group takes all the stuff and hightails it out of there. Me, being the most, normal, aka, the colors had stopped moving. I didn't take anything early that him cause I was the DD, packed up the van, and we headed into town. This was in the days before cell phones, found a payphone and called the police. I explained I had found a child wandering the road leading to the campsite, thinking, okay, not on guy's property, but the kid could have theoretically walked out and down. I sent 3 of my friends who were still busy to the diner as not to have issues with police, and there was actually a little mom-pop store there where I purchased wipes, disposable diapers, a bottle, milk, and kid clothing, typical tourist drive-through and country town stuff, but had his size. This was after I found a wad of cash on site, which thankfully I found because I spent all my own cash being busy for 3 days straight. This kid downed a bottle of milk in like 2 minutes. We tried a cup and straw, and didn't go. He had no idea how to use them. We walked to the diner, and I got him a pancake and a scrambled egg. He downed it. Didn't Calden say his name? So I called him George. Took the cops over 3 hours to come. My friends, who weren't the most responsible, wanted to just leave him at the diner. We got into a huge argument. But since I held the keys, I held my ground. When the police finally arrived, we got interrogated like I was trying to abandon my son. He was clinging to me and wouldn't look at the officer. I explained we found him on the road, explained his condition and what I did. Even though I was the most sober, I was still the most sober out of 4 people who just spent 3 days at a festival. So it was very relative. I had the splotchy skin, big pupils, probably didn't smell too great, etc. Finally, a lady arrived, probably social services, but at that time I thought, oh, they called a woman because a child would be more comfortable with her. This is when I still thought society gave A, and there were proper protocols set up. We were given the 3rd degree. Did we trade said child for drugs? Did we take the child? Was the child molested? Did we molest the child? Did we give drugs to the child, etc.? Now, I grew up pretty sheltered, more sheltered than I realized at that time. Though I had some horrid experiences that shaped my existence, the things this cop was asking me shocked me, as well as got me upset as I was patting myself on the back on how I was handling everything. I seriously was picturing receiving a medal from the town, news coverage, hailed a hero. I know, I'm a loser. So a lady tries to take George. He's screaming and clinging onto me. I'm upset, asking if I could just keep him, not thinking. You're a 22-year-old who lives with parents and still hasn't finished university at this point and still parties every night. We finally calm George down, and I give the remaining diapers, another milk bottle. Yes, I kept the milk in the cooler. No, it wasn't curdled or warm. Wipes and the shirt we found him into the lady, and off they went. Then we finished up with the cop. So we thought. We gather our group 2, had wandered off to go commune with nature. It cannot take any responsibility nor be around law enforcement. We get about half a mile from the town limits, and whoop whoop. Now I've been almost up for 3 days straight and looked at pulled over. And guess who saunters up to the car? The exact same POS cop who interrogated us about George. Asked me to step out. 20 questions. Asked to search the car. I said no. Argument threats. Dog called to do outside search. Shows a tell which gave them probable cause. Tore the car apart along with our carefully packed FES gear. Couldn't find a thing. I passed a breathalyzer. So couldn't get busted for that. Was given a ticket for speeding. I wasn't. And then drove the remainder 4 hours home. I still think about George and hope he found his parents or a good home. TLDR, found a toddler at festival and dealt with a shitty small town cop. Story 30 after this thread. I would volunteer to clean up after Coachella. I feel like the money, clothes, phones, jewelry would 100 make up for the gross bits. Story 31 small tree fully decorated with used condoms. An event where the average age is around 19 years old, 16 to 25. It was the introductory week for college. It's jokingly not allowed to have with other introduction students. So people snuck away, apparently all walking back past the same small tree and leaving the fruits of their labor there. Story 32. I was part of the organizers of a symposium for scholars back in college. After using the auditorium, as courtesy to the building admin, we made a quick sweep and pick up small trash assembly to find out a used condom. It was weird. BC lights were on throughout the vent, and it was jam-packed. Restrooms were outside, so that really baffled us. Story 33. Worked as a carny a few seasons. The zipper operator would straight up guard his rides area to loot it in the morning after its use. Many cell phones, wallets, cash, and tons of change. He knew how to operate it so well that he could spin certain tubs full of riders excessively if they looked drunk or like they might be unwilling donors. He made more in ground scores than he made operating and moving the ride. Story 34. I've said this before, but I worked electric force one year and was appalled at how much trash and vandalism is left behind. Sure, you had such a spiritual, enlightening experience and felt so connected to the earth after tripping, littering, and eating cold-processed ravioli out of a can for 3 days straight. Story 35. My partner is a sound engineer, and hayrays some things he's found: a cable covered in pee and a suspicious white powder, bags of said white powder in the bathroom. Apparently someone trashed the stalls, the giant pink double-ended toy, bongos, bingo, and finally poo, just there in the middle of the room. Someone had taken a dump during the event, right in the middle of the crowd. Story 36. Drugs. bag of different drugs, pills, trips, and powder. The shitty thing about finding this is that when they're really good, you don't even know what they are or where to get some more. Story 37, slightly different, but this reminds me of a road race at which I was once a marshal. A company had also hired some cleaning staff to man the route, and one of the ladies was assigned to a particular area in which there were 3 cardboard bins with plastic liners to collect the runner's rubbish. While doing my marshaling, I was observing her and noticed that she kept such tight control of the area and the bins. The cardboard was breaking due to weight of the garbage and water left by the runners, and she was doing her best to ensure nothing fell out or blew into the area. At one stage, she ran to me with some energy drink given to her by the folks at a nearby stand. She just dropped it off and back she went. When the race was done, I told her I could see that she was very busy, lots of running around and picking up, and she responded yes. Their team leader had told them if any litter was found in their area, their wages would be deducted. I can't remember if I gave her something extra after this. Don't know if I had money on me, but I thought it was somewhat heartbreaking. She had really worked for her money, whatever little it may have been. Story 38, I used to help clean up at Download Festival in the UK. Best thing I ever found was a half-ounce bag of weed. Worst thing, an abandoned tent with a used tampon and vomit inside it. No wonder they left it behind. Story 39, I've seen the crew clean up after Coachella, and it is amazing. They light it up like daylight. They have machines that are like gold ball removers drive around and up the garbage while an army of workers in lines catch everything. In less than an hour, the fields are swept clean and reset for the next day. It's like a military operation. After AC/DC, there was a sea of blinking devil horns that were given out and tossed. Story 40, I used to walk around the raves and look on the ground with a flashlight. Found a multitude of great things, and one night I would find a baggies, ecstasy pills, cocaine, assorted drugs, 30 lighters, hundreds of dollars in cash, jewelry, and so many articles of clothing. That was the average each weekend. Story 41, a pig's head. Crew had roasted a whole pig during setup, and someone off their head decided to take the leftover head for a walk-around site Monday morning of the festival. It was actually a bit messed up. Saw a few freaked out people afterwards, and had to convince them it wasn't real, so they would calm down. It was dumped in a hedge somewhere until crew found it and disposed of it properly. Story 42, I work in the operations department of a stadium, mainly for sports, but have the occasional concert. Was doing the bump out after a Foo Fighters concert, and found 4 guitar picks in the room they were using for rehearsal warm-up, and convinced the great DG held them himself, and no one can sway me otherwise. Story 43, I didn't work there, but the day when the festival is over and everyone leaves is always kind of interesting. One time we were pretty late with packing all our stuff up, and then tried to get into the long lines of cars that tried to get off the camping ground. In 3 hours, we just moved for like 100 m with a lot of time between movements. So we spent the time outside of our cars with the drivers rushing to them. As soon as the line moved, and some of our groups started going around and collecting stuff for a provisionally camp. First just some chairs, a table, and a pavilion. Later they came back with a sofa and 3 bicycles. They rode around for fun. We also got beer from some guy who was also waiting, so we had fun. Story 44, I'm an event manager for corporate conferences and trade shows. Best thing I've seen left behind was from a large, well-known medical company. They left an unopened, brand new defibrillator that you'd see in an emergency room. When I called and told them they had left it behind, they said to keep it. So naturally, I Googled the item. Retail cost $5K. Worst item. Nothing too crazy, fortunately. Probably some used hair weaves or cheap dildos adult industry shows. Story 45, this will probably get buried, but I worked Ozfest at an outdoor venue years and years ago with guest services. People started pre-gaming in the parking lot at like 8 a.m. and doors open at 10 a.m. It was during a heat wave, and by 9 a.m., it was 90-something degrees out. With the way people dressed all goth like heavy black clothing, they were dropping like flies by noon. The med tents were full of people with heat stroke. I went to the bathroom, imagine like a porta potty, but elongated into one long trailer. So like 10 stalls at least and a long sink in the front. I walked in, and the cleaning lady was slumped on the floor, sobbing with her face in her hands. It was out of a horror film. There was projectile vomit all over the sinks and projectile all over the stalls. I didn't even end up going pee. It was so awful, and I felt so bad for cleaning staff that day. Another awful thing that happened as well, this old lady came up to guest services at like 11 a.m. asking if she could use the restroom if she wasn't going to the show. She had a stroller with her with a newborn. Mind you, this was 95 degrees out now. And the venue was in the middle of nowhere, like you had to drive to come, and it wasn't walkable from any residential areas. We kind of probed her, and she told us she was DDing for her daughter who was at the show and helping her watch the baby. They were waiting in the car. With the asphalt in the parking lot, it must have been 100 degrees by noon. This was an entire day event. I worked until like 8 p.m., I believe. This was before cell phones were big, so we couldn't reach her daughter to kick her out. So we called the cops and CPS. The grandma spoke broken English and was so sweet. They couldn't find her. The grandma told us her daughter's favorite band, and security went to let them know the situation and asked if they could make an announcement. I wish I could remember the band, but they called for her and told her she won a backstage pass to meet the band. The band delayed starting their set and waited for her. She showed up so excited, and the cops were waiting for her. The band was there too and reamed her out. That chick, I hope she got her parental rights taken away. Literally anything you can think of, dildos, strange art, anything a human can secrete. Best time to go is Saturday and Sunday night. Just take a walk in high traffic areas with your head down. You'll find lots of drugs and cash. The craziest thing I've ever came across, though, was just a huge coincidence. I was at a festival about 750 kilometers from my hometown. It was Sunday midnight, and I was just dancing through the darkness on half an oz of mushrooms. I noticed a flash of white out of the corner of my eye near the forest edge. Turns out it was someone's provincial ID card. Not just anyone's, it belonged to a girl from my hometown I haven't seen in years. Given her lifestyle, it's not strange she lost her ID while up at a festival. It was just a crazy coincidence that the only ID I've ever found in years of festival going, far from home, at a festival with 9,000 people, happened to be someone I knew pretty well. Story 46, I work in a large sports entertainment arena. One of the guys in the cleanup crew swept up thousands of smoked joint clips off of the floor and put them in a sandwich bag for use another time. Story 47 leaves autographed in golden ink. The band was signing albums in the backstage, and they got so wasted that they ended up signing the next thing they laid their eyes on a tree. Story 48 best, drugs worst. Not after one nor I worked it, but went to a festival, went to buy chips, and bought enough of them for 3 persons to last 2 days. When I turned around to find my friends and split coins, dropped my phone, and when I bent over to get it, a meter away was money. Got it, counted it, realized we just got 2-day festival for free, including the coins I just bought. Story 49, I worked as a volunteer at a big Nordic music festival. I did some cleaning out of the artists' loges. Half were unsmoked joints, semi-hard drugs, and a lot of decent and high-shelf booze was a regular occurrence. But the food was usually the best part, so one I know got a couple of kg of veggie sausages once. Not from the same section, though, but the nicest was probably when a friend of mine found a signed set list with a short thank you note to the cleaners. That was cool. Story 50 helped a lady find a diamond earring. She had never been to a festival before, and the night before she danced in one spot with her friends all night long. Next morning, she was out there crying, digging around looking for it. I happened to have a really powerful magnet in my car, so I went and got it and found it for her after a couple minutes. She gave me 100 and smashed my face into her when she hugged me. Story 51, we had about 5 kids volunteer help clean up. We decided to pool all the money we would find on the ground and share between the 5 kids. It was 3,500 people evening that day. In the end, the kid got 60 euros each. The worst is, and always will be, removing all the drapes and other promotional stuff hanging on the fences, full of and vomit. I forgot the second worst, picking up all the cigarette butts from the ground. We only do that at the end on the 3 days festival. We have huge ashtrays everywhere. We have trash can, but still, people throw it on the ground like it's nothing. I don't like cleaning up indoors because of stale scent of, well, everything. But outside it's but the occasional used condoms too. Story 52, drugs, cash, many lighters. Mobile phones, don't remember anything too bad, the odd, but I didn't see any I fancied keeping. Honestly, working a festival is great, maybe depending which one. I had free entry to a great little festival I wanted to go to anyway. Sadly, it is no more, only worked 12 hours over 3 days, which I got paid for, and went home with a big OL bag of drugs in my pocket. Story 53, my mate took side jobs like this to help get by during festival seasons. Collectively in 1 year, he found about 2,500 of spare change notes, phones, watches, and other accessories like jewelry, tints, and once he found someone's handbag. He gave all the items to the local police. The money he couldn't put in, as it was all spare change. Nothing like a wallet with a big sum in it. So not much the police could have done there. He was come to pick up 20p, apart from 5 phones. Nobody reclaimed any of the items or the handbag that had a phone, necklace, and an idless wallet with 250 pounds in it. So, as is the law here in the UK, he received all these items for free after a set amount of time. He sold them all, and in total got around 4,000. Story 54, my mom routinely cleaned the tailgate areas after football games. She pretty much brought home everything you'd expect to find at a tailgate. I remember lots of chairs, cabana-type things, a few coolers, and some other random things after a game day. It was kind of like Christmas. Sometimes stuff was broken, but often could be easily fixed, so my mom would bring it home. At one game, we ended up with a ton of umbrellas because they weren't allowed in the stadium and people left them at the entrance.